And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody if you hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me, there's a PayPal link down below for anybody who wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated. And of course, the StreamYard link's down there for anybody else that wants to join the panel. We've got Pastor of the Way with us and Fearless Floyd. How you doing tonight, guys?
Hi, thank you for having us.
Doing well.
Absolutely.
How you doing?
I am getting better and better every day. As long as I keep growing, that's improvement. Keep learning, that's improvement. And that's the only thing I can hope for is to keep getting better and better. And as I said on the title, it says perfected title question mark. And it's with regards to my research, what I found out is we're supposed to have some kind of private security exchange because that's what we're technically doing in all these transactions. We're exchanging securities. Even if it's just a receipt, that's known as a cash item, which is an obligation or other security of the United States. How do we know this? Look at your receipts when you use a debit card or a credit card and they print out that receipt. Now, even if that credit card or debit card is in your name, you would think they would give you a receipt in your name. However, the receipt comes out as a U.S. debit. Okay, so even the cash receipt is a security instrument known as an obligation or other security of the United States. It needs to be securitized. That's the problem. On their side of the ledger, they've got a surety. That's the United States citizen. It's known as a United States business. And it's acting and performing the functions in public office, and you're the authorized representative.
Correct.
But if you don't know this, you don't know how to qualify this signature as the benefactor expressing a trust rather than signing as trustee expressing the contract. And that's a big difference. So the best way to do that is a preventative measure through indemnification, which is known as a prepaid expense. Now that United States citizen known as a resident of the state is issued through a residence office in the state. That's the Secretary of State. You get the birth certificate. That's the surety. It's a surety bond. All you have to do is underwrite the indemnification and then transfer it to the surety company that is holding the surety bond and indemnification for the political subdivision that is using your performance in your actions as if though you're performing the functions of public office. And I'll remind you, 19 USC 81O says residents of the zone. That's the zoning improvement plan, the zip code, which is coordinated through county zoning ordinances and municipal zoning ordinances that follow state statutes. So the zoning improvement plan is from the Postal Service, of course, and the resident determination under 19 USC 81O is no person shall reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. That's never happened. Everybody's been volunteering that signature all their life on all those documents. There's never been a private placement. Everything's considered a public offering. Even on your side. When you're acting as a buyer for something, you're also selling something. On the other side, the same transaction is occurring. It's a dual transaction happening at once. However, you're not really covered. Only the person is. And even if you get insurance, it's still following under that surety bond with no actual indemnification underwritten by you. See, the insurance company is the one that's doing that underwriting.
Right.
And they're using contract terms, not trust terms. When you underwrite it, you express the trust in equity for private relief and private remedy through a private issue of a surety bond with an underwritten indemnification agreement or private placement, not a public offering. And you do it with the same place you do with a public office. That's the SEC.
You're
Well,
breaking up.
Okay, my apologies. So I've got a document from 2010 that I'm going to pull up. This is an agreement with the SEC.
You're breaking up, Keith.
Let me unplug it right back.
You might want to repeat both those statements you made. They both broke up. Oh, we can't. I can't even hear you
So
now.
when it comes to the SEC, you got me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so when it comes to the SEC, there's two things: public offerings or private placements. Everything we've been signing so far has been converted through a pooled investment fund. They pool our investments because they're so small, say a court fine or something. It's not enough to invest in the bigger markets. So it's a small business concern, and they pool those small business concerns into one basic bond and put it in their name. Okay? That's because you gave up rights, titles, and interest to the property by not qualifying the signature. And this is just the way the system works.
I
again,
agree with what you're saying in part.
So again, if you don't express the trust in your documents by signing by Benefactor or qualifying in some way, expressing that trust and your part in it, then the parties are really not defined. Okay? So let's take a look at this. This is the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. Washington, D.C. 20549, Amendment Number 1, Form 10, General Form for Registration of Securities, James A. William Trust, exact name of registrant, District of Columbia, state or jurisdiction of incorporation or organization, and it's got a nice little EIN, and then it's got the address of principal executive offices, zip code, issuer's telephone number. This is no longer connected. I've tried to call it. It's disconnected, so I'll try to see if I can get a hold of this guy. But again, this is from 2010, but I want you to understand, this is the SEC. They're the ones putting this in the public domain now. So it's an example of the same thing we can do. And it's birth certificate bond. It's telling us it's an individual surety bond for international bills of exchange and international promissory notes. And in those bills of exchange and international promissory notes, there are general clauses for indemnification for them on their side. That's the thing that's missing on our side. Indicate by checkmark whether the registrant is a large accelerated filer, an accelerated filer, a non-accelerated filer, or a smaller reporting company. See the definitions of large accelerated filer, and smaller reporting company, which is the small business concern, company in Rule 12b2 of the Exchange Act. Go ahead.
I was going to say by the title, I think he would be a small business concern.
Right, but he's filing as a large accelerated filer, and I'll show you why. Large accelerated filer is what he checked. Explanatory note. We are filing this general form for registration of securities Form 10 to register our individual surety bonds, international promissory notes, and bills of exchange pursuant to Section 12G of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 as amended, the Exchange Act. Once registration statement is deemed effective, we will be subject to the requirements of Regulation 13A under the Exchange Act, which will require us to file annual reports on Form 10K, quarterly reports on Form 10Q, and current reports on Form 8K. We will be required, remember, this is potential. This is to be. sometime in the future. It's not effective now. Be required to comply with all other obligations of the exchange applicable to issuers filing registration statements to Section 12G of the Exchange Act. Unless otherwise noted, references in this registration statement to the registrant, the company, we, our, us, means James A. William Trust. So he's making a distinction and clarifying the parties. Our principal place of business is located da-da-da, and gives that information.
All right, let me ask you this, Keith. Back up a little bit. Have you done any searches for the 10Qs or AK forms for this entity, James A.
No,
Williams? Okay.
no, because he's not had to file them.
Oh, okay. He hadn't filed
Yeah.
anything.
No, because he's not required to yet. It's to
Okay.
be if once
If he's
registration
required.
statement, right? Once registration statement is deemed effective,
Huh?
it's not been deemed effective yet.
Okay.
It's just in a private placement, and the reason it's in private, or the way to keep it in private placement is you don't sell the warrant. You keep the warrant yourself. That way, nobody else can issue a warrant.
Now, the one thing he's not done, I don't think, personal opinion, you've looked into this guy's stuff deeper than I have. I've seen it floating around, I'm pretty sure, but Floyd sent it to me. Did he go get his Q-SIP number? If you're going to be issuing securities, don't you need a way to track them? Yes.
Okay.
I got a
Okay, let me
video.
tell you
I got a video. Hold on. I got a video on my YouTube channel where I had a conversation with P.I.G.S.C.U.N.T.S, and they told me what you needed to get a Q-SIP number.
Yeah, this birth certificate bond, this
Mhm.
is the birth certificate bond number. The Q-SIP
Yeah.
number is the 6-digit number at the bottom. There are 6-digit,
Mhm.
8-digit, and 9-digit Q-SIP numbers.
Now,
This is the one on your birth certificate is an individual Q-SIP number.
I've heard that. I've not seen documentation to prove it, but I've got a video on my on the certificate of live birth out of North Carolina. Okay, the red number on the bottom. I've got a video where Vital Records. I asked them about that number, and they said, "Well, that's a receipt number."
Yep,
Okay,
and that's
so a receipt number is not necessarily a Q-SIP number.
right, but it acts the same way. It operates in different venues differently, but in its original jurisdiction, it's a Q-SIP number.
I just don't like presuming something I can't prove. That's my problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Let me.
We say stuff that like it is, like people say the number on the back of the Social Security card is a Q-SIP number. Well, I ain't seen no documentary evidence to prove that. It may be, but if I'm going to have to go into court and prove my case, I need to be able to have documentary evidence, and I don't like claiming something I can't prove.
I agree with that 100%.
So to me, if there is a way to get a Q-SIP, and what they told me was all you had to submit to them was a public or private offering. And if your offering is legal and meets all the requirements, QSIP.com will issue you a Q-SIP.
Right. Okay. That would make sense too. Great. And God dang it.
Legal tender.
Yeah, now you
Right.
can track your securities.
Hold on, guys. I got to take a call real quick. Go ahead
That's
and keep the
fine.
conversation.
We will.
Okay.
Well, he mentioned the receipts for debit cards, and when you see right here, it has international bills of exchange. And I always say that every time you get a receipt for whether it's a cash, credit card, or debit, you get a bill of exchange. That's
What a receipt is closer to as a bill of exchange.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's what you did in exchange.
Yep. Keith, you back?
Yep, I am back. Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. Everything is some kind of exchange. everything in exchange is meant to be securitized as an obligation or other security of the United States as a matter of national defense.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go down and it says forward-looking statement. There are statements in this registration statement that are not historical facts. These forward-looking statements can be identified by use of terminology such as believe, hope, may, anticipate, should, intend, plan, will, expect, estimate, project, position, strategy, and similar expressions. You should be aware of these forward-looking statements are subject to risks and uncertainties that are beyond our control. That's the first inclination of an act of God that's beyond our control, and therefore there's automatic indemnification. For discussion of these risks, you
That's
should
beautifully written.
Yep. For a discussion of these risks, you should read this entire registration statement carefully. Titus 3:8. This is a faithful saying that I will that thou constantly affirm that he who believed in God be careful to maintain good works. These are good and profitable unto men. This is bringing equity. In order to receive equity, you must first bring equity. Especially the risks discussed under this section entitled Risk Factors. I gotta check. I got somebody else coming that's supposed to join as well. Okay, not
Now,
here yet.
question: is this being live streamed anywhere, or is this private
Yes.
amongst
No,
us?
this is live streamed on 3 of my channels: Keith Little,
Okay.
El Perro, Heckle-Bus. And anybody else is welcome to restream.
Well, I just wanted to know so that way I know what the limits of the information I can say and not say is, because there are some things I won't talk about that you can't necessarily put into the public. Privately, whole nother ball game.
Right, and that's casting pearl before the swines. Although management believes that the assumptions underlying the forward-looking statements included in this registration statement. Oh, we gotta have you mute, guys. Thank you. In this registration statement are reasonable. They do not guarantee our future performance. Okay, it's making a distinction. It's not guaranteeing a future performance under a contract. And actual results could differ from those contemplated by these forward-looking statements. The assumptions used for purposes of forward-looking statements specified in the following information represents estimates of future events and are subject to uncertainty as to possible changes in economic, legislative, industry, and other circumstances. As a result, the identification and interpretation of data and other information and their use in developing and selecting assumptions from and among reasonable alternatives requires the exercise of judgment, discernment in your choice, your free will. You have a knowing, and this knowing is that you've got this assumption and this assumption and this assumption as choices. They're all assumptions. To the extent that the assumed events do not occur, the outcome may vary substantially from anticipated or projected results, and accordingly, no opinion is expressed on the achievability of those forward-looking statements. Therefore, you can't expect a completion of contract either, because again, it's not a contract. In light of these risks and uncertainties, there can be no assurance that the results and events contemplated by forward-looking statements contained in this registration statement will in fact transpire. You are cautioned to not place undue reliance on these forward-looking statements which speak only as of their dates. We do not undertake, one of my favorite words, because that's what you're doing. You're in all of your life, you're undertaking an obligation through an authorization that you're not qualified for. You're not the death maker. You're not the death person. You're not the death pledge. You're not the undertaker, but that's what you're acting like. You're undertaking all of their paperwork, and that's by leasing your personal services. any obligation to update or revise any forward-looking statements. We do not undertake any obligation to update or revise any forward-looking statements. And remember, this is in form of a trust. It's going to use trust terms. Therefore, it's expressing a trust. That right there is an expression of a revocable trust, that they can change those obligations. They can undertake them if they wish. Any questions yet?
I don't have a question, but that was like 2 paragraphs of like
Beauty.
nothing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was beauty, letting them know that, hey, you don't have anything you can come against me at.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Well,
Beautiful. I agree with you on that word, that undertake word also.
Well, being I teach
Wow.
contract law, being that I
Back
at
up a
the
little bit,
moment
Keith.
have a contract law class going on, that was a beautifully written paragraph.
thank you.
I am gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's telling him you don't have enough information to make a claim against my performance.
Man,
Item 1.
Classic.
Right. That's all the presumption.
Yep.
I went
Item 1.
over.
Yeah,
went
don't
over
lie. Just accept that everything is already assumed. You can't tell the truth because you don't know it yet.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, you can only tell truth on what you have firsthand knowledge of. Everything else is a belief,
Right.
and then you got a First Amendment. That's a First Amendment protection.
Yep. So we continue on. Go ahead.
Wow.
But yesterday in the contract law class I'm doing, I was telling my students when we'd get into that paragraph and they would start putting out all that string of words like what you read. I said, do you understand what you're seeing? These strings of words are there because an attorney read a court case and it had 2 of these words, but it didn't have this other word. So this attorney goes and argues a case based on that word. So you got to really look at it like that. You can't leave them a way out.
Yeah, what did President Bill Clinton say? Well, that would depend on what your definition of is.
Correct.
Pathetic. So we go on. It says, and real quick, I want to welcome Sean, Russ, and Steve. How you doing tonight, brothers?
Doing well. Good to see everyone.
I'm very well, thank you.
Awesome. Great to have you aboard. So as we continue on, it says the James A. William Trust, the company. So it's making the distinction that this is the fictional company, is a District of Columbia business trust organization. That's the way it was started. Okay. The company was created in January 2009 for income tax and bailment purposes. That birth certificate is the same, a surety bond, a bailment, everything. It's a multiple type of security instrument. It just depends on how you securitize it. The company is a grantor trust. Go ahead.
So, brother, greetings. Wasn't this in when you said 2009, wasn't that in the time when Obama came into office?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well,
January 2009.
Depending on the trust you're talking about, it was actually potentially created before then. Well, that also depends on the alleged date of birth, because a lot of people still are not aware. If you search signatories to the trustee reports, they tell you who the trustees of the trust that was created are.
Right, but remember, the trustor creates the trust. Okay? So nobody came forth and created the trust. It was established through enumeration at birth and will qualify for a trust once a trustor, grantor, trustor, they're both the same. Once the trustor comes up and creates the trust. So once he realized, hey, wait a minute, he came forth and created the trust. That functions as a pass-through. Like I said, I've been saying this for a number of years. I'm just the pass-through.
Right.
For the real living man, James Williams. The company will not engage in dealer or broker services, nor will the company issue securities for the purpose of profit or gain. We're not here to invest. We're here to provide indemnification.
So that would pass through would be like a transmitting utility as a pass through, correct?
Correct. And that's what I say. That's the utility company too. The company will adhere to GAAP, maintain a zero balance, and any new credit issued for the daily expenses will be canceled by filing a 1099-C form at the end of each quarterly tax filing with the IRS. So you just keep your receipts of all the credit you issued, and you file a 1099-C. What's a 1099-C, guys?
Isn't that like a
Cancellation.
triplicate form? A triplicate form?
It's a cancellation of debt.
Yeah, right. I know it's a cancellation debt, but isn't it in
But
triplicate?
Yes.
yes. And remember, the cancellation of a debt is what? It's the same damn thing as redemption. The company's FINS number, financial institution numbering system, and they have a financial institution numbering system number, and they give it out. So there's certain information they're giving out, but there's certain information they're not. And that's the warrant information. They're going to keep that. And that's why it can't be considered a contract. James Williams, grantor beneficiary. Notice this is a slash. That means you can substitute one for the other. Just depends at what time you're granting or taking the benefit of the grant. Oops. For the company has been appointed by power of attorney for Williams, comma, James Andrew, the transmitting utility we were talking about. Look at your driver's license. That's got the last name first and then the first and middle name, and it's all uppercase.
So Keith, does the warrant, is that an internal housing of an instrumentality?
No, well, yeah, it's the you're going to hold back certain private information so they can't use it in a contract, which keeps the contract from even being placated. And this is why it's so important to understand that if you're going to keep yourself out of the contract, express the trust. And if you are going to enter the contract, you still need to placate yourself in the right place in the trust so you can fall back if you're not qualified. So it continues on. It says, which was created in Ontario on December 26, 1972. So this is the creation of a transmitting utility that was expressing a trust somewhere, but the trustor hadn't come by and created it yet. Now it's created, and it's being expressed. For the purpose of being a citizen for the United States of America. For the purpose of being a citizen for the United States of America. And the transmitting utility is a citizen of the United States. Yet we are American citizens of the land. That's the spiritual presence, not the manual presence, citizen for the United States of America, whose personal presence is a United States citizen, a transmitting utility. James Williams will engage in business in commerce as the principal and surety for all governmental and non-governmental obligations, debt, including all registered corporations on the federal and state level for the benefit of the United States of America. To accomplish this, James Williams and or the company will execute the necessary surety bonds, international promissory notes, bills of exchange, and supporting documents evidencing the obligation after acceptance. This is where you underwrite the indemnification. This is the supporting document. Then register the instruments with the Securities Exchange Commission and obtain a QSIP number, like brother was saying earlier. Does that make sense, guys? That QSIP number is an international protection.
It makes sense, but there's some things I view slightly different.
Well, tell me.
Now, if you were in my Telegram group, I could actually walk you through the documents that's in the file section. So at the moment, you'll just have to give me the benefit of the doubt. What we discovered about 5 years ago, there was a contract that the typical mother signs for the infant about 6 or 8 months before birth, which gives an abandonment over the infant. The infant and the baby are not the same, okay? The mother signs a contract to take the baby home when the birth event happens. The infant dies. If you go to a Black's Law 11th edition, look up Born Alive test, and you read the second definition, it says a showing that an infant was alive at the time of the event, but it later died. That's where we get the term decedent. So
Right.
The infant dies, and they put it into probate. Vital Records in my state actually admitted, yes, there was a probate file created, but we can't talk about our internal policy, okay? So the state actually was the grantor for the trust because it was placed in probate. Now, you are correct, nobody's come forward, but nobody's going to probate. I had a nice little sit down with the probate clerk in the area where the event happened for me. Nice little 15-minute conversation.
Yep, check this out. That's exactly what they're talking about right here. Current birth registration process for state vital records jurisdiction. They're claiming it's their jurisdiction. It can't be. There's an error.
No, it can be, because you got to realize there's 3 products of conception. This is why I said it has nothing to do with the baby. That document's nice, but who does it apply to? I've got a file in my Telegram group from the CDC, and I've put videos out on it. And I've got the public law. I think it's Public Law 107. Don't quote me on that. It's in Telegram, where they talk about the 3 products of conception. And the 3 products are the baby, the placenta, and the umbilical cord. The question is, which one's got names? Well, if the mother gave an assignment over the infant, she gave it for the placenta and the umbilical cord. And the baby never got recorded. That's why I've had mothers that I've said, do you have your footprint documents? Not the pretty decorative one, but the one the hospital filed. They say, yeah.
Right, the memorial.
Get it. Not the memorialization, not the pretty decorative one, the hospital record itself.
Right,
And
that's
say,
the book of life. That's the book of life. They've got 3 registered per page.
Yeah, they say, yes. I said, would you mind going to get it? And I said, now, you thought you were naming your son or daughter? Yeah. I said, can you tell me the name that's on that document? She said, there wasn't one. I said, bingo.
Exactly.
They don't know the name of the baby.
It's baby boy Little.
Baby.
Exactly.
Right.
You recorded a baby boy or baby girl with the surname Little.
Mm-hmm.
So is this an abandonment file that all these states have an internal file called the abandonment file? And this is where they put all the
I don't know.
information?
I don't know. You got to quit presuming the names of things we don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
the only reason I'm asking my question, I was posing my question to the gentleman that was just presenting the information to you, because this is some information I remember early in my journey is what I found out through one of the states. So I'm just
Well, what we do
Yes.
know, and I can show it in the Iowa code, and the law is to be uniform throughout all jurisdictions, and all jurisdictions would be these states, and the law is given equal protection among the states, so it correlates. And in Iowa, upon the enumeration at birth, there's an establishment of what's known as a burial trust, so that when the birth certificate matches up, now they can fulfill their obligation and contract by performance and completion of that contract by transferring the body to the cemetery and burying it.
Yeah. Now, something else. I've got a video of a conversation with Social Security, right? And they talked about the trust. And they said, oh, we saw the birth certificate when it was created. So my logical question is this: how did they see the birth certificate when the mother hasn't even received the birth certificate yet? The only way they could have was if the state's the grantor, back to that again because of the probate, and the state is the grantor of the trust, and the birth certificate would constitute a trust certificate, which means the Social Security card is the bank account. Anybody that's created a trust, to create a trust bank account, you have to produce a trust certificate. So,
Correct.
how did Social Security see the certificate before the mother even got it? Because the mother typically fills out the documents at the hospital.
Right.
The
Now
only
check
way
this
they
out.
could have seen it is if the state gave it to them and they said, "Oh, okay, now we know the name to put on the account."
The
Right.
state, the
Well,
state
what you're
is
real quick here, what you're talking about is right here, right here. The local registrar at the county. See, the birth clerk enters into the vital records here, which is an internal department within the state health department, and then they issue a birth certificate for sale to the local registrar. They have it right there. The birth clerk to the state, and then they send it back to the local register, who buys it or offers it for sale. It's an offering for sale right here. Go buy it.
well. So my understanding, and I've been at this a while too, is that this document basically shows exactly what they're doing. What they're selling is the afterbirth umbilical cord, like you stated.
Correct.
Right after you're born, the afterbirth and umbilical cord are still alive. So they immediately register it and they immediately put it in the system for trade, and they're selling that to the futures market. The futures market is based on what growth is going to happen in cities, towns, and states. So they put it on there so it's registered immediately. It takes 10 days to get back to the mother, but it's registered immediately at the hospital before the close of business that day.
Right, and that's why this
Well, if
is
you
talking about forward-looking statements, because if it's able to be entered into a future market, then it will. The language is too simple when you look at it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it is simple. When you look at the foundling codes in most of the states, and I've actually found almost all of them, but the one that most people are familiar with because of KW is KRS 213.051. The contract that was signed 6 to 8 months before birth, there was an assignment given to the hospital. Okay.
Yep.
In paragraph C of 1C of that code, it says name of person or institution with which the child and infant is synonymous, not baby. It says name or institution with which the child has been placed for care. Well, the assignment in the contract is actually for care. And then it says in 1D, it says name of given to the child by the custodian of the child. The mother puts on the legal hat of custodian and names the infant.
Yep. And
She
that's
don't name the baby.
Yeah, she names the infant, and that's the abandonment issue, because neither mom nor dad came forward because they didn't understand the terms, and they claimed a capacity that they shouldn't have been. And again, that's
Well,
because the English language that we're taught in public education system isn't what we're taught.
Well, how much do they actually talk about in the media about the problem with absentee fathers, right? Well, the ultimate absentee father problem is this right here. The only person that was competent at the time of the event to claim the baby is the father.
Correct.
If you go look at the word begat in the Bible, the word begat in the Hebrew means to act as midwife. Well, the mother makes the delivery, the father acts as midwife and receives the child. Guess what happened? The father never received it and claimed it.
Right, and you're absolutely right. When we look up the Hebrew thing about begat in King James Bible, it says to bear, to bring forth. If I'm the one that's going to bring forth my son, it's because I'm the one that caught it as he came out and then brought it forth to who? Mom. The union of three. Absolutely correct. Absolutely. So let's go back to the SEC agreement. And it says obtain a QSIP number or international registered mail number for tracking purposes. It's only to keep track. It's not for administration or execution of law or enforcement of law. It's for tracking purposes for the surety bonds, international promissory notes. Oops. International promissory notes and bills of exchange. James Williams and or the company's purpose is to exchange the surety bonds, international promissory notes, bills of exchange for the obligation in return to have the other party making the claim perform according to the surety bond's instructions. Creating, tell us that it's not there yet. Creating a quid pro quo exchange, not a contract, a quid pro exchange for settlement and closure. And this is being done first. We're coming with the indemnification. It's prepaid. James William and or the company will always have a priority security interest above all claims to ensure performance is rendered properly, in person, pursuant to the contract.
Change your screen, Keith.
Oops.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
My apologies.
Now, Keith, since you brought that up, I've been telling the people in my group, I said, you need to understand the Fourth Amendment first clause.
Absolutely.
Right of
the people.
The right of the people, men and women, to be secure in their persons. The
houses, papers, and effects. Yep. And you are not the house. You are not the effects. You are not your papers. Therefore, you are not your person either. It is yours. It belongs to you. You need to learn how to conduct the affairs so it's not defamed. Go ahead.
Correct. You need to, with that, the persons, how many persons can you create? As many as you want.
How many channels do I have, guys? He's on point.
So they gave you a person. You haven't created your documentation and paper trail, so they know who's operating it. And the average person, the reason they know it's being operated, they keep track of the social. The problem is you don't know who you are in relationship to it.
Yeah.
So you don't know how to express agency. You don't know how to express these things, and you don't have your stuff properly recorded. So what made me think of that was when you started talking about, you was alluding to impropriety persona. How are you ever going to come in your proper person if you don't have your person registered?
Yep. And this is the vessel that's wandering around abandoned. There's no captain aboard. And it's running into other vessels. And they're going to hunt that captain down because he wasn't with the vessel. And they're going to use that vessel as a matter of salvation of their right of claim. And it's all false.
So when you're talking about when they talk about when you register this person, do they mean it has to be registered like a DBA?
No, we're talking about it right here. Yeah, it can be, but that's not secured. It's only registered. This is registered with the Securities Exchange Commission. They're the ones that allow the commission of exchanges of securities. And it's relative to the Postal Regulatory Commission for everything posted.
Now, he's correct on that, okay? But personally, I've done the SPC process years ago. Probably shouldn't have done it first thing. That's just my opinion. People are going to do what they think is right. Me, I created the limited liability company for the name because why? The Social Security account is a limited liability account. So then I created my assumed names based on that. When I registered my assumed name in my state, the lady behind the counter looked at it because, see, I don't sign anything with a surname. The surname gives them power. Found it in the DC code. So I signed all my church credentials, only have my given name and my title of pastor. My business documents are only signed by that same name. So she looked at my assumed name and said, "Is that your last name?" I said, "No, that is my name." "Well, I can't file that because the name don't match." I said, "Yes, you can." She called the clerk. And the clerk said he can use whatever name he wants. They don't have to match.
Yep, you can use a mark. Remember Prince?
since you brought that up, how many people running around and
Symbol,
talking about how many people run around and fighting the mortgage company that there's only one party that signed it? How many times do these companies put an X on the signature line? An incompetent can put an X, and the mortgage company is an incompetent.
Yep. That's why I
Yep.
tell people to circle that X.
Exactly. And we
you don't
just
give a
discussed that
you-
past day, Keith.
Yeah, I'll scratch it out.
Oh no, I'll circle it. What's an X with a circle around it? That's Hebrew for tet, truth. Look it up.
Yeah, you show me that. You show me that the other day. Yeah, but I
So
usually
as we-
scratch it out. Yeah, I don't mess with that X. Shows incompetency.
Yep. So
Now,
each
personally, like I was saying though, personally, the LLC for me becomes the holding company. The holding company then can create the trust, because when you go get an EIN, when you go to the IRS to create an EIN, who do they want to know that created it? The name and the social.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
gotta have something you gotta have a holding company to control the social. Everything branches off of that.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
And that's what we're creating essentially here is a holding company, but not at the state or municipal or county level, at the international level. And it's a holding company with a contract with the Postal Service. They're the ones that are holding it for us. That's the contract. The indemnification is an agreement with their fidelity bond, which is the same thing as a surety bond for the United States on down. It's a trickle-down system. It says James William and or the company shall execute each bond after acceptance of any claim for the benefit of the United States of America, leaving the party making the claim under the contract in a fiduciary capacity to release all claims and any funds from the escrow account in their custody listed on surety bonds to the principal to complete the quid pro quo exchange. Beautiful language, huh, Pastor? The
I like
claimant,
it for the most part.
Yep, the claimant, who's now in a fiduciary trustee capacity, will be subjected to all liability and payment if he dishonors his fiduciary duty to settle the exchange. And further, it will indemnify the original surety and principal from any further obligation on surety bonds, international promissory notes, bills of exchange. So what it's doing is releasing the original surety, which is the United States. They're the ones that have the surety bond with the Postal Service.
Now, for me personally, I look at it slightly different. I look at it from the standpoint of what my Bible teaches me. Jesus said what? Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's. So if Caesar wants to be the surety and hold the obligation, let them get out of their way.
Right, and that's why I say hand that title over to the Postal Service. I think that's who's supposed to hold it. They have the real estate investment trust with that title, and that's showing proprietary information belongs to the number so enumerated with the street name, which means it's a street name security created by the municipality. That's the contract with the municipality to accept that street name and securitize it with their bonding number. That's proprietary information of the Postal Service, and that's their contract with the municipality.
If y'all don't know what street name means, y'all better look it up.
Absolutely. That's the defamed name. Go ahead.
I want to throw in that first and foremost, there's probably about 6 or 7 ways you can do this stuff, because I did all my stuff through the probate court. So
exactly,
I've done a Form 56 that titled me as a fiduciary, and then I titled the public administrator as the administrator of the estate. I then turned the presiding judge in the county into the commissioner over the private side of the estate. So I'm all set, God willing, soon this week to do the full flip.
That's what you should have done. You should have. That's what people. That's the one thing. That's the one step most of the people are missing. They're not going to probate. If
Yep.
they started a probate file at the beginning, Jesus talked about if your foundation is built on sand, you got to repair it. You got to put it on a solid foundation. Well, if the
Right.
foundation started at probate, you probably need to go to probate.
Yeah, and probate literally means, guys, to prove one's will. So if there's no will there, that's the assumption and presumption that's still riding under the legal fiction. So all you have to do is what? Express your living will. That's it.
I'm the only living person in probate, and that's
Right.
what floors everybody every time I share with them the stuff I've done, because they can look up the probate case and see that it's there and it's me that's in there, and they're like,
Yep.
"Wait a minute, you're not his son, you're not his." No, I'm him.
I'm him.
Yeah.
So
Scott versus McNeil. Scott versus McNeil, Library of Congress.
Yeah.
A probate has no jurisdiction over the estate of a person who is in fact alive. And that estate encompasses all real and personal effects right from the beginning. One of the first effects was the enumeration at birth.
yeah,
You can come back and correct it.
that's the thing. I'm really feeling like the only thing I need is to probably have another bond or have another person sign for the bond, which right now I'm the fiduciary, so I would have to sign for the bond. So I think that's one thing I'm going to need either right after I get out. But I'm going to say this: when you really get out, they put you through pure hell, because that's all I've been going through. And they're just, when I say they're arguing over every I dotted and T crossed, they are trying to make me be absolutely perfect.
And that's what we're talking about, perfection of title. That's what we're looking
Well,
at doing, is perfecting that title.
The
As
reason why
holder,
is they don't
as holder in due course of that title, you get to perfect it, and you're the only one that can, because it's done for you. For you.
What I said I can write it how I want to. I don't have to do it your way, but they're not
Yep.
me do it my way. They're going to make me do it their way. So that's the unfortunate part.
You got one reason they're going to put you to the test is they want to know that you're competent. Because if you're not competent and they turn this over to you, you can create a lot of havoc.
This is true, and the
lot,
havoc you can create is really seismic, especially when, because I don't know if many of you've heard about the SLGS, which is where I think they do everything. That's the state and local government securities.
Yep.
Yeah.
In which they're I think when you go to court or they pull you up in their system, if they're the administrator, they can pull up and look at every account that's ever existed in your name.
Right, and that's that small business concern at the municipality, where they're pooling all the small business concerns in their name and issuing a municipal bond.
Yep.
They're using your capacity as a resident, saying you're the agent.
Well, they're using your estate as collateral, and then they can collateralize up to 80% because they have to go securitize 20% of that money, which is what they do on the futures market. So they go and create something like West's High School or Newman's Hospital.
Right.
Whatever, it's a public facility, but then they block grants. They take everybody that's in that community.
Yep.
For the estimated range at which the hospitals, the ambulance will travel, or you have to commute to school. They take that range, and then every single every single registered one that they have with the state, i.e. via driver's license or some other form of identification, they got you because you never claimed anything to your estate. So they're going to leverage it as an asset because it's in their territory. And then that's how they do it. Because when I had got into SLGS, the guy I talked to him for 3 hours. We were going back and forth. He said, you have to be state or local government in order to get in here. And if you don't have anything in here with your name, you can't get in. And I argued back and forth with him. We got off the phone. 2 weeks later, I got a username and login. Now, it didn't go anywhere because I didn't have full securitization of the trust. But he gave me a username and login, which basically validated that my name is in there. So he kept telling me I had to be a state or local government, but I wasn't. But the fact is that something is in their system with my name. So that's the bottom line. That's where, you have to, number one, be malleable, because I don't know what these son bitches going to do. They do all kinds of crazy shit, and I've had more crazy shit in the last 3 weeks than I've had all 17 years I've been doing this.
Yep.
But that just tells me I'm close.
Absolutely, and I think we're going to smash the home run one of these days, where we're going to be able to start putting forth the redemptions, the indemnifications. And so I posted that link. Thanks for reminding me, Floyd. The link is in the chat, both private and public there.
Well, I was going to say, in addition, that no matter what, though, you're going to have to create a trust.
Yep.
So whether you go through probate or not, you're going to need a trust because you got to move the credits.
Right, and the trust is that, again, in probate, all you have to do is express your living will, but in expressing that living will, you express it as a trust.
Correct. And as long as you have a trust, you can move the credits, because you got to
Now-
understand the 3 tiers of money: credits, securities, and cash. And we're talking about moving it as credits. So with the people, the true power of the people is to move the credit. If you touch
Yep.
cash, you're an employee of the
Yep.
government incorporated.
Acting in the performance of functions of public office by dealing with public fiat. Go ahead.
And securities is what he's talking about here with the SEC getting registered with them. Then you'll be able to move securities. But off the jump, when you come out of probate, you're only going to be able to move credits. You're not going to really move securities. You got to do this, what he's talking about with securities, to move securities.
Yep.
And don't touch money ever again in your life.
Well, the true money is credit. If you go
Yep.
back to the congressional record, March 9th, 1933, they said it was backed by the credit of the nation.
Correct.
Yep.
Credit debt system.
You know,
So you
people
have
run
debtors
around
and
saying,
credit.
yeah,
Well, and that's why
I
we
mean,
have
there's two sides to the ledger. You got a credit side and a debtor side. The question is, which side of the ledger are you playing on?
Yep.
Most people
And that-
don't realize they're on the creditor side, but they're talking like they're on the debtor side.
Yeah.
and that's a distraction that's not helping them realize, like I'm saying here, if you're on the right side and you know what's going on, their side of the ledger is being kept, both debits and credits. You have to fix your side. That's indemnification, redemption, cancellation of debt. You don't want the debt against the United States to keep rising, do you? No. So what do? You cancel them.
So the thing to
So
think
Keith-
about is keep in mind that you got to switch. Anytime you're dealing with underwriters, back office, or anything like that, that's them flipping you from a creditor to a debit.
Yep. Yep.
They're not. I don't think they're actually flipping you, because if you read 12 U.S.C. 412 and you understand Chapter 16 of the Federal Reserve Act, which is also 12 U.S.C. 412, and what it said in the congressional record, you're issuing a collateral security. Okay.
Yep.
The problem is you're talking to them like it's a debt. I had a nice little conversation with my bank manager, and I said, so it's my understanding that as a depositor, I'm the creditor. She said, correct. And I said, that means the bank is the liable party. She said, that's correct. And we had about a 20-minute conversation, and so we got to talking about mortgage notes and everything like that. And she said, are you telling me you wouldn't pay the mortgage? I said, that's not the right question. The right question is, at what point was it paid? She said, I see your point.
Exactly. It was paid upon deposit.
Yeah, when you
Absolutely.
deposited the note.
Yeah, I was
So
just
they
showing
wanted
it,
to-
breaking this down to my dad with his mortgage deed. I was just breaking the same thing down. It says on the right page, on the first page, that he's the creator of the trust. He's the grantor. But then they give him this big stack of word of contract with legalese all in it, and then on the last page he signs as the borrower when it says that he's the grantor.
Well, the problem with it is this. People are out there trying to do what's called debt discharge. Well, follow that to its logical conclusion. If there's a debt, pay the debt. But if you're the issuer of a collateral security, and as you said, the grantor of the trust, the grantor would be the creditor. You need to start talking to your trustees and ask to review the books. Because if
Yep.
they don't give you the books, now there's a breach of fiduciary duty and you could drag them into court.
Yep. And that's that investigating the record for errors, omissions, so that we can correct it and perfect it.
And actually, it even said that the bank is the borrower on the front page.
Correct. Yeah.
It said he's the creditor, the bank is the borrower, and then on the last page it said he signs as the borrower.
Look
So
up
he's
a
being
court
presumed
case.
to be the bank.
Right. That's why I broke it. I'm like, look, all you have to do is read the first and the last page.
That's what they're saying in your contract, though. Is they're saying that you agree to give us the credits, and then we'll agree if you agree to pay us for this term of the loan. We'll accept your credits, provided you agree to pay us. So that's where they're flipping you.
Yep, they're getting the credits and you pay them.
Exactly.
So it says, what do you want us to look up, Pastor?
Look up a court case. It was decided January 4th, 2023. It's called P.I.G.S.C.U.N.T.S Network LLC.
Henry.
I put it in the chat. It's a bankruptcy case. In that case, the court said the depositors are the creditors. This was a crypto exchange. Okay. So the depositors in the crypto exchange were the creditors to the financial institution, which was called Celsius Network LLC. But they couldn't do anything about the bankruptcy and the loss of their deposits because it was a contract dispute.
Yeah.
Has that changed since 1933? And it's just because it's a crypto exchange, it's now different? No.
Shit, I could give you Martin versus the state of versus Community America. I pulled $58,000 from my estate, and they sued me for $5,700 just to keep it small claims. But when I asked for discovery of any deposits lost, they never gave me anything.
They're not going to give it to you.
And then I told the court, I said, well, they failed to give me any discovery proving that I gave them anything. They said, judgment against you, pay the $5,700. The
judge just said, screw it, right?
They said, fuck it. They're just going to go ahead and just, this is what I've gone through, is that this system, no matter what you say and no matter how right you are, that don't mean that's what they're going to do. They're not going to do right. Because they are in control and they do not want to lose it. And that's why I'm saying the things I'm going through right now are so crazy because they're completely. I got arrested last Friday for a ticket that I voided 2 years ago, and they arrested me for failing to appear. They take me to, it was a municipality. I got arrested in the courthouse of the county, and they took me to the municipality, which is a smaller municipality than that's in the county jurisdiction. They said I had to pay $750 to get out, or for the bond. And I'm like, well, shit, it's middle of the day, ain't nobody got shit. And I'm just like, damn, I don't know how long I'm gonna be here. They only held me for 4 hours, and then they let me go on an ROR bond. And I'm like, I started to question the guy. I was like, fuck it, I'm out. So let me just get out. But the bottom line is what I'm saying is I'm breaking their system, and they don't like it.
Yep.
Well, I think it's also you got to look at. I want you to Google something called highly sensitive document rule. One of the best PDFs is on the Federal Court of Claims, and the first paragraph talks about what is considered highly sensitive documents. Okay. And a lot of times when you go into these court cases, you're not respecting their privacy.
Mm-hmm.
If it goes into if it's going to be something that goes into the public record, they're not being corrupt. They're protecting their interests. They cannot allow certain things into the public because they have rights to their property just like you have rights to yours.
Right.
Their property being the willing sheep that want to go along with everything.
Right, and this relates to those secret agents that might be exposed because of your idiocy. This is the espionage law. They will hold you against it. That's why I made my statement of separation to let them know I know all about that, and I don't care about your ID as long as you don't care about my ID. So we're looking at that case real quick. We're looking at that case real quick. Under New York law, a bank and its depositor stand in debtor-creditor relationship that is contractual in nature, but not in fact. The bank owns the deposit. The depositor has a claim to payment against the bank, and the bank has a corresponding obligation to pay its depositor. Accordingly, a bank's temporary freeze on an account without more is neither a taking of possession of the depositor's property. So if the bank owns it, and here it's saying possession of the depositor's property, nor an exercising of control over it. That's all they own, is the control over it, because it's in their possession. As the property owner, you get to direct them on what to do with it as
look
far as
up
transfers.
Now, if they are the debtor and you as the depositor are the creditor, why would they own it? Because they are the debtor. You've heard the term debtor in possession. Eon just put out a video on it.
Yep. Here it says, highly sensitive document procedures and court orders. This is United States courts.
Yeah, there's
Federal
a PDF
court
somewhere on there. Yeah, but the PDF is what I want you to find. It's the PDF document. I've got to the point where if I'm going to do anything with them, I'm going to put it under that PDF. The cover page is going to say this: the highly sensitive document rule, PDF.
Yep.
If you type
United
in highly
States
sensitive document rule, Federal Court of Claims PDF, you'll probably find it. Yeah, that's it.
That's it?
That's one. That's one. Yeah, every federal court has one.
In response to recent disclosures of widespread breaches of both private sector and government computer systems, the Federal Circuit Court's circuit finds, pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 2071E, that there is an immediate need to alter its rules and electronic filing procedures in order to allow parties to file certain highly sensitive documents outside of the court's electronic case filing system. Awesome. I'm going to have to read that one.
Now, it gives a description of what is considered highly sensitive documents. 3 of the most important. The first 3 doesn't even apply to what we're talking about. The second 3 that's in that paragraph, it's like if it's going to put a bad name against the United States, then it's HSDs. If it's something dealing with enforcement rules, it falls under HSDs. And there's one more I cannot think of.
But this is proof positive what I talk about all the time, Keith, with the military jurisdiction moving the goalposts when it's convenient.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
No, it's not convenient. It's they have certain rights. You have certain rights. If you want them to respect yours, you need to respect theirs. That's why you don't expose their system when you're in their system to the sheep.
Yeah.
Well, it's as the officer told me when they detained me Friday. He said that we have the 10th Amendment right, which of course is sovereignty to states. And I said, I agree, but your sovereignty to states should never oversee the sovereignty of the people. He's like, well, that's not true. We have to in order to do the justice that needs to be done. And I said, well, that's where we're going to agree to disagree.
Yep.
Well, technically speaking, he is half right, because if you believe in the Bible, God instituted government to punish the wicked. So they have a duty to punish the wicked. If you want to stop being punished, stop being one of the wicked.
But let's go to what.
Not only that, but they have to be able to come forth with other discernment. To think that somebody's got 94 cases, most of them traffic citations, and they think I'm a wicked man, that's false. That's defamation.
Is that because we got to discover the true meaning of crime. Crime is damage to person and damage to property.
Absolutely.
It's not a violation of rules or ordinances. You can find me, penalize me for those rules and ordinances, but you cannot detain me. But that's what they've done, is they've gone and moved contract law into criminal law, and both sides of crime and commerce exist in the same space, and that's where their government violates your rights, and that's what we have to fix.
So as we
I get what you're
continue,
saying. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, because this next part is important when it comes to that, the issue of money and what we have for payment as it relates to cancellation of debt. As a result of HJR 192, and from that day forward, June 5th, 1933, no one has been able to lawfully pay a debt or lawfully own anything. The only thing one can do is tender in transfer of debts. This is where the beneficiary can come forth and settle the debts by making a transfer. Transfer of what? The surety. With the debt being perpetual. That's what we're living in, perpetual debt right now. The United States is known in bankruptcy. The suspension of the gold standard and prohibiting against paying debts. Prohibition. It's an HGR 1. It's a prohibition against paying debts. Removed the substance for our common law to operate on and created a void as far as the law is concerned. This substance was replaced with public national credit system where debt is legal tender, money. HJR 192 was implemented immediately. The day after President Roosevelt signed the resolution, the Treasury offered the public new government securities minus the traditional payable in gold clause. 192 states that one cannot demand a certain form of currency that they want to receive if it is dollar for dollar. This is why I said you give them double. You double it up. It's a big gamble. They want to bring $73 million to the table. Tell you what, I accept, and I'm going to raise you $73 million. You want to call? That's basically what this is. They don't want to call you. They're going to. They find out that they're going to have to pay all kinds of money if they contact you. They're not supposed to be contacting you. They're not supposed to be fucking with the benefactor. They are public servants in a public trust. In consideration that only fiat money exists in circulation with which to discharge debt, and in order to facilitate lawful commercial transactions, and in order to lawfully engage in commerce, the James A. Williams Trust shall issue negotiable instruments in its adherence to public policy. UNCITRAL, that's the International Forum, FASB, and the accounting principles under GAAP. All commercial processes shall be truthful, open, and above the board. Full disclosure, the company intends to apply the net proceeds from the sale of the 4 secured debt obligations. 4 of them, like I said. 4, research, development, and applications of knowledge and substance in the fields of science, medicine, for the general health and justice. Not for pecuniary compensation, profit, investment, or nothing. For research, development, and applications of knowledge. The true benefit is knowledge. And the substance in fields of science, medicine, for the general health and justice. Regulation, United Nations Commission. The United States Postal Regulatory Commission, the IRS Commission, the Social Security Commission, the County Board of Commissions. All of them commissions committing the contracts on international trade law, not local trade law, international trade law. Articles.
Well, you know why it's international, though? What are the states? The states are sovereign countries. So that means they're separate nations. And since the government, the federal government, is a foreign jurisdiction to the states, they have the right to regulate commerce, which is actually international law.
Absolutely. That's the Uniform Commercial Code is international commercial law. They're just using different words and terms.
But the true regulator is the Bar Association, which is a jurisdiction.
Well, I don't have a problem with that because I know what it is. You got 3 jurisdictions. You got admiralty jurisdiction, equity jurisdiction, and common law, right? Admiralty jurisdiction, you have a lot of these groups out there talk about they brought the sea onto the land. No, they didn't. Admiralty jurisdiction in maritime law is a subset of the law of nations, what we call international law, under the law of commerce. That's the reason why, if you read the Constitution, you have an actual term called admiralty law. Admiralty law is contracts in commerce over the land. Maritime law is contracts in commerce over the sea.
Mhm.
That's why the two are so similar, because it's commerce.
Right. And remember, the admiral is the one that assigns the captain of the ship. So he's
Yep.
absolutely admiralty is the land, is the commercial law of the land, and they send their captains out along the seas.
They
Well,
gave
you're-
you a person when you become 18 called that Social Security Trust, so you could go operate in commerce. But we've been trespassing on their rights so much
Well, hold
because
on.
we've been trying to own it when it's
Hold on.
theirs.
Hold on. Because they do the bar association, they throw their 12 presumptions that you're yielding to when you walk into their jurisdiction. And their
And
12 their
guess
12
who else is
presumptions.
guilty of presumption? Guess who else is guilty of presumptions? We've been guilty because why? We presumed that card made us a U.S. citizen. I did a
Yep.
FOIA
Oh,
request in
See, that's
2022 and asked the
that's false
question.
that's false
Said,
pretenses
hey,
under contract law. That's non-disclosure. They didn't
Yeah.
tell us that.
Right, but that
Right.
also goes to the term accident under the Transportation Code, which is merely continuous and repeated exposure to the same conditions that caused a public liability that the insured never expected nor intended. And how do we know that? Because he never knew about it. Now that he knows about it, he's going to correct the records. He was never of a public capacity to place a public liability.
But that's
now I
the
disagree. I disagree on they never disclosed it. They literally publish everything. It's my fault.
Right.
I didn't go look for it and read it.
yeah.
How many
Right.
times do we sign contracts? We never read them, but we
Right.
sign them and say we did.
And that's the thing that I bitch about with the public
Yeah.
education
Yeah,
system.
they don't.
Because,
That's what I was going to say. They don't teach us none of this stuff either.
Yeah.
So
Who
and
wants you to
so
know?
it may be there, but they didn't specifically disclose it to us through
Who made
education.
sure,
That's
who made sure I knew how to do
the
quadratic
basic minimum.
equations? I had to learn how to do quadratic equations in high school that I
Right.
have never used since I graduated.
right,
Never.
exactly,
Yes,
But this
I
is
get that.
extremely relevant
exactly.
to my life on a daily
But
basis.
sir, let me give you a real life example to prove why you already knew it. You just didn't know you knew it. When you turned 18 or 16 and you got your license and you wanted to go out and go on a date, you said, "Hey, Mom, can I use your car?" And yes, you can use the car. Don't run it out of gas. Be home at 10:30 and be safe. You knew there was rules. You knew it wasn't your property. When you started work, they gave you a social, and on the back of the card it says it was their property. But you
Oh.
never once asked the question, if it's not mine, how should I use it? You already knew that if it wasn't your property, there was rules, aka your mom's car. You knew right from wrong.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, because in
That's
school,
a
you know, they teach
presumption.
us about that social in
That's
school, and they don't teach us that we need to figure
That
out
is
how.
an unconjurable presumption that you told me just because it's on the back page of the third paragraph on the 456th paragraph I read. It doesn't just because I didn't read that. I mean, you've conditioned me to
Right.
not read it. You've conditioned me to not pay attention. You've conditioned me because trust me, at 18 years old, if I knew the Bar Association had 12 presumptions that they did against me every time I went to court, don't you think I'd have walked into every single case I've ever had and
Right.
said I denounce all 12 of these presumptions? I'd have did it
Right.
right
Oh,
out the gate
I
because I'm surrendering my jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's
get
like the
what you're
definition.
saying. I get what
That's
you're
like
saying.
the definition of accident, where the insured never expected nor intended. Had he known it would be happening like that, he would have never done it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. But I come to the realization for myself when I had a very lengthy court battle. Somewhere along the way in that court battle, I said, you know, I'm the problem. Because when I turned 18, I cared more about everything else than what my rights were. Okay,
But they're not
so
conditioning you to care about your rights. They're conditioning you to chase girls, get you a nice hot car, get you a good job, not build a business, not build an
And
empire. They don't want
yeah,
you doing that. They're
and think that you got to
Yeah.
go into debt to do it.
Right.
yes. They don't
Right.
want you
On
building
my own, I teach my daughter, now do not sign shit. Tell them you can't sign nothing unless your father's there. She's
That's
that's
by
a
law.
smart man right
13
there.
years old.
Yep, absolutely.
Again, under contract law, she can't contract until she's 18.
Yeah, but
contract law.
I'm conditioning her to know that signature means something more
Yes,
than
it does.
she knows.
If
And
if
so I
you
got to
want
ask
to
about all.
say,
And so I got to
if you
ask
wanna
about all
s-
these. Hold on, I got to ask about
Go
all
ahead.
these paper boys that are delivering newspapers at the time they're 10 and signing documents in contract form, especially checks. Endorsing them on the back and depositing them in a bank account that has a co-signer as mom and dad. How come he's never taught how to qualify that check?
Yeah, tell me.
that's a good example, Keith, because here's what I was getting ready to say. You can't blame the system, and here's why. If you're going to blame anybody, it's your mother and father that didn't teach you this stuff. Because
Yep.
the Bible clearly talks about
Yeah, definitely.
generational curses.
You will pay
sorry.
for your father's sins.
I'm sorry. This system is so willful in its deception. Like I said, I could
It's
not
not.
pass Algebra 2 if I did not know quadratic equations. I couldn't pass it. This
You
is
know
an
why
essential element for my life. I need to know it. And
Well,
the
here,
You know why?
I related to the Bible also when God told Adam and Eve don't eat from that tree, and they ate from that tree and they wanted to blame God. We were never
Yeah.
told not to eat from that tree in commerce.
Yeah, but it's not commerce is not evil. What I'm getting at is the Bible tells me, and if you go through Genesis 6, Genesis 11, Psalms 82, Romans 13, you start getting the picture when it says God instituted government, how he set it up. The reason I will not say the system is evil is because if I'm going to say the system is evil, and it's his institution, I'm going to have to say God is evil. What I will say is there are men and women that are in it that are evil.
I agree with you 100% on that. Yeah.
Well, I will say this. The system itself was created to do good. They don't put anything out there bad. They always put it out for the common good, and then they come and corrupt it. But they put it out there initially as a good service for the community. So the education system is a good system for the community. They just miseducate us.
But they have no duty to educate. The true duty comes to the mother and the father. But what did they? What happened starting in 1950?
But your
What happened in?
tells you trust us. We'll educate your kid while you go to work.
And the Bible said, "Put your trust in no man."
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we do have to take accountability on that. On something.
100% agree on the accountability factor of everybody's not going to do this because everybody ain't made this material to do this.
No, they're not.
And
No,
to
they're
the
not. You're right.
To do this.
Right.
And to the point of commerce and the monetary system, the love of money is the root of all evil. And even in Matthew 25, verse 18, parable of the talents, it says, "But he that had received one went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money." That's regards to the talent. The talent is the Lord's money. The talent is the benefit. The benefit is the knowledge. You're supposed to go forth and spread your knowledge of what you can do. Those are your talents. That's the
What
money.
we're doing, I'm of the personal opinion, what we're doing with a group like this, and because this information is exploding, I see it as a potential that we are slowly starting to accept responsibility for our sins, because what is the law? The law is a schoolmaster to teach us of our sins, right?
Absolutely.
And we are raising a generation that may change the direction of our nation.
Yeah,
I hope.
Well, I think it's our generation that has to make the change because the younger generation is dumber than we are.
Yep.
That is so true.
I wouldn't agree with that. I think every generation gets a little wiser.
Yeah, but they're dumbing down on the fundamentals of what we need to know. Are they computer savvy? Absolutely, way more than we are. But they're fundamentally inept. I got a nephew that went through high school and they got rid of cursive writing for 3 years in his high school. He doesn't even know how to sign a check. So, I mean, this is the reality. Is there?
Well, the reality is he's not going to need to sign. Everything's going to be electronic. So, you know,
but as of today,
don't
he's
even want him to qualify.
He has to sign stuff right now.
Right.
In
The
5
thing
years,
is, well, one of the thing is that, you know, when I was coming along, my parents didn't know much about the banking, but what they did, they took us to the banks with them so we can understand some of the things that needed to be required. And had they known more, I think they would have shown us more. And I passed what I learned from my mom and my dad to my children. Now, had I known more, I could have given them more. And if you look at the word, you know, they talk about knowledge. When you get correct knowledge, you get the wisdom. And there's the wisdom. That's why the name of Sophia, the meaning of the name Sophia is the wisdom. So with the knowledge, you get the wisdom. I yield.
I agree. I'm only saying this is that there's fault all around, and it's not any more my fault than it is their fault. It's fault all around. So,
right, and that's why the indemnification is so important here.
In order to correct
it,
what I'm saying is, my biggest teacher wasn't my dad, wasn't my coach. It was the owner of the New England Patriots who taught me better than anybody else about money. So if you don't know, I played pro football for 10 years. Colts, Eagles, Jets, Patriots, Packers, Chiefs, Texans, and Vikings.
I think I've actually talked to you.
When I was at the Patriots, we had just won Monday Night Football against Pittsburgh Steelers. Tough game. They had just won the Super Bowl in 2001. Bob Kraft comes walking through the locker room, congratulating everybody. We won the game on an interception by Tabucky Jones. He gets to Tabucky and he says, "Hey, Tabucky, that was a great ball catch thing you did." And Tabucky looked at him, and everybody in the locker room just paused. Like, what did he just say? He said, "You know, when you caught the ball and won the game." We was like, "What?" And Tabucky said, "You mean the interception?" He said, Yeah, that's a good job, son." I had ice on both my ankles, both my knees, my back, and my shoulders. And I'm like, this son bitch don't know what a goddamn interception is. He just built a $195 million stadium, just won the Super Bowl, and he don't know what an interception is. I said, I am on the wrong side of money.
Yep.
Well, the thing is, it's not what it is, you know, and who taught. I mean, what it and how you learn it is who taught it to you, because that's why we have many people in our growing, in our journeys, that teach us. I came from a very strong lineage of women who taught me and allowed me to grow into the woman I am today. So it doesn't have to be the immediate family. It could be someone on the outside that's giving you the wisdom and knowledge so you can grow into who you are to become.
Well, that's kind of my point, is that he wasn't trying to teach me.
Right.
He taught me on circumstance, just because he's in a different world. His world, he's just looking at the ball catch thing that won the game. He don't give a shit how it was done.
Exactly.
My life.
He just made a lot of money.
Yeah. My life has been dependent on knowing what that was all the way to that point. He didn't give a shit about it. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, man, this is fucked up. I got to change the way I'm living. Because it wasn't that I didn't have great teaching before. But what that did was open my eyes up to say there are people that look at this world completely different, and they're making money the same place you're making it, but they're making it way different. So you got to learn what they're doing, because what I'm doing, I made my money while I was there, but that son bitch has made at least minimum $23 million per year since 2002, and that was when they had only won one Super Bowl. After winning 6, I'm sure it's exponential at this point. And that's what he reports. That's not what he actually makes, but that's what he reports to the IRS. So that's what got my mind started in thinking shit different. Like, we got to do something different, because over here, this is a bitch. My body's hurting from head to toe. That son bitch went home and he was just as comfy, got on a plane, went to Jamaica, came back, like, how's practice going, guys? It's like, shit, I barely survived it, almost died. You know, he's living in a different world, but he's making money off the same fruit I'm getting money off of. So that's kind of my point. So when you start really getting into all this shit, and all they do in the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, is they tap this money. They're not paying. If the logo is red, white, and blue, it's owned by the Federal Reserve. And if it's owned by the Federal Reserve, they allow these companies to tap those. Why do you think the collective bargaining just obliterated any and all discussions about teams leaving one state to another? Because they all started tapping the Federal Reserve accounts. So when they
right, and this is where they do a lot of the trade-offs with a lot of the players. You know, that's what they do.
Yeah, you sign the contract, and they're literally, because what I do is I sign the collective bargaining agreement, and I'm in the collective bargaining agreement until I die. But I can only play for a team for so long.
Wow.
But it's the collective bargaining agreement that I'm in contract with for the rest of my life, and I get benefits and privileges. And when I told them I terminated all of my NFL contracts, and the only one I didn't have to do was Green Bay because it's a public company, I terminated all of those agreements, and I told the NFLPA I'm terminating them. They said, you can't. And I said, no, I want to immediately. They said, sue us.
Wow.
And they said, sue us because they know every single judge is going to be with them no matter what the hell I say.
So that must have been for the Lombardi statement in Green Bay, isn't it?
Well, no, it's just the Green Bay is a public-owned company. So they gave me a termination notice when I left. Every other team didn't do that because technically you'll still be under the team's. Basically, that's the whole name, image, and likeness thing. Because every single stadium I played in, you could go to their boards of who's played here, and they still got my name there.
And that's why I say it's patent, copyright, and trademark laws.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And that's what NIL does, is blows all that shit up. That's why NIL is going to fuck up every single professional league there is. It's just going to take 4 or 5 years to do it. And it all stems off of this shit right here.
Yep.
Well,
all of it.
We also think wrong on what money is. You know how people say, well, they stole the gold, and so we have no lawful money. Really, what makes gold valuable?
Negotiable instruments.
How many people want it?
No.
Well, no. What makes it valuable is your belief in it. When God created everything, He created everything that has a use. The only thing that He created that had value was mankind. But man now treats mankind as having no value, and all the tangible items having value. No.
Yep.
It has a use.
Intrinsic value is a myth. Nothing has intrinsic value.
Well, and when it comes to the negotiable instruments, I say that's money because it's commercial paper where you can put your value in it, and that's the problem. People aren't expressing that value.
Now that's where we will agree on that, because back in history, up until the 14th century, there were countries that used seashells for money. Who decided seashells had value? The parties to the contract. And what is a promissory note? A promissory note is a contract.
A promise to pay in the future. It's not due yet.
Do me a favor, Keith.
Is time. Time is the only thing you can actually spend.
Yep.
Do me a favor, Keith. Go look up NCGS 105-83.
NCGS
105-83.
North Carolina Assembly? No.
Yeah. North Carolina General Statute. 105-83.
Installment paper dealers. Installment paper dealers. That's that commercial payment with installment plans, and you're dealing in them.
Now, read the first paragraph.
Every person engaged in the business of dealing in, buying, or discounting installment paper, notes, bonds, contracts, or evidence of debt for which, at the time of or in connection with the execution of the instruments, a lien is reserved or taken upon personal property located in this state to secure the payment of the obligations, shall submit to the Secretary quarterly, no later than the 20th day of January, April, July, and October of each year, upon forms prescribed by the Secretary, a full, accurate, and complete statement verified by the officer, agent, or person making the statement of the total face value of the obligations dealt in, bought, or discounted within the preceding 3 calendar months, and at the same time shall pay a tax of 277,000 of 1%, 0.277 of the face
So,
value of these obligations.
so what did it say? Didn't it list? So installment paper, that would be mortgage contract, purchase agreement for a car, credit card statement. Then it said notes and bonds and contracts. Wait a minute, contracts? What is a promissory note?
It's a
And what is
contract.
what is the value of the revenue stamp?
Exactly.
277 thousandths of 1%. So a $100,000 note would be $277. I've got a
Yep.
phone call where I had a conversation with the State Department of Revenue, and they told me, they said, "Oh yeah, you just do your quarterly taxes." I said, "No." I said, "What if I wanted to issue one next week?" They said, "Bring it down here, pay the tax. We'll put the stamp on the back."
Yep. Absolutely. It's an amazing and beautiful setup. It really is.
The reason I brought that up is we were just talking about money is a contract. What do the two parties agree to?
Yep. And notice that the last one, it said evidence of debt. That's
Yeah.
your receipt. It says U.S. debit. So that's an evidence of a debt against the United States. So in the interest of the United States, for the account of the United States, I'm going to cancel this debt. They're going to like me. So we continue on.
Yeah.
The surety bonds, international promissory notes, bills of exchange contain certain elements known as data elements that require all parties to perform according to the instructions stated in the bonds. This element is required to complete the private exchange, quid pro quo, between the principal and the party listed to release any property or funds from escrow, meaning they're held by a third party, to the principal in accordance with the private exchange for the benefit of the United States of America government. In the interest of the United States, on the account of the United States, I'm going to cancel this debt. Let the Postal Service know, according to the Narrowcast Master Trust Exception Report, that, hey, there's an out-of-balance debt with the United States. They're required to research and resolve it within 3 days. The non-compliant party in their fiduciary capacity becomes the liable party on the bonds, international promissory notes, bills of exchange. The holder of the bonds, international promissory notes, bills of exchange, now has the responsibility to collect on the dishonor and must hold James A. Williams Trust and James Williams harmless. The marketable securities are owned by James A. Williams Trust. They are marketable, not marketed, and are listed as short-term assets on the company's balance sheet. And I dropped a link to this down below so you guys can read the rest of it. But I got a couple things I want to point out here specifically, and that is competition, none.
Because it's probate.
The industry in which the company expects to operate is private and public. Government regulation, under treaty, United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, UNCITRAL, which it mentioned earlier. James Williams will have 100% underwriting rights and control over the company and its bond. It should have been its bond. International promissory notes, bills of exchange, issues. No dividends. Balance sheet data. 1,336,793,273. Where he got that amount, I don't know. But we're going to show you it came from 4 bonds. He's matching bonds and doubling them up on various surety bonds, I'm sure. I don't have any evidence. Like I said, I'm trying to contact him and find out where he got these amounts. Total current assets, property and equipment net, investments in unconsolidated subsidiaries, 0. You're not in it's not for investments. Other assets, see attached IRS 1041 and OP 91 forms. I have to do some research and find out what the OP 91 form is. But that's 472,784. Total assets 1,337,316,057. Total liabilities the same. So the assets and liabilities balance. It's a 0 balance. Liquidity and capital resources. 273. Where's that number? That's the total current assets. Out of balance sheet arrangements, the registrant does not have any off balance sheet arrangements that are reasonably likely to have a material current or future effect on its financial condition, revenues or expenses, results of operations, liquidity, capital expenditures, or capital resources.
I'm curious where you got those numbers.
Description of registrant securities to be registered. The company is authorized by its ownership and control of the primary bond, the Certificate of Birth, Ontario, to issue 100 billion units, of which 100 billion are individual surety bonds, international promissory notes, bills of exchange. The company had issued a primary bond on December 29, 2008, valued at 100 billion United States dollars, reference postage, shipping or shipper tracking number, and then California private offset account number and bill of exchange. So he created a bill of exchange, not an indemnification. The large number is to be used to offset any debt obligations that may be issued against James A. Williams Trust or James Williams. The beneficiary and or the company can only use this ledger to cancel out debt. The Secretary of Treasury's receipt of the aforesaid financial asset and certified statement of live birth, which was accepted for value, meant that the Secretary was able and obligated to ledger the credits on the public liability side of the accounts. The private side was already ledgered as a result of the acceptance without protest of the aforesaid asset. So it now is an asset on his side because it was accepted as a credit. Now it ledgers out 0 balance as a debt that's owed to him. It's an acceptance. They accepted the conditions and boom. So let's look at the next one. It says, the company is also authorized by its ownership and control of 4 secured debt obligations in the amount of $1,197,293,273 US dollars, 107 million US dollars, 24 million US dollars, and 8,500,000 US dollars. And I'm wondering, this is why I want to contact this guy so bad, if that's not against the United States, that's against the state, and that's against the county, and that's against the municipality.
But see, I just did mine as a fidelity bond. So basically anybody that's been operating the estate, which is the state and the federal, I just hold them liable for anything they've done, and all that money's owed to me. Right.
And I believe the fidelity bond would operate the same way as the surety bond. We can do some research on it, but I believe they operate the same way. Greetings, King El Bay. How you doing tonight, brother? There he comes.
Greetings, Keith. Just listening in, just honing in on what y'all discussing about all of this private, public status relationships, and just trying to see the main points. As I start to notice all of this stuff, I'm starting to realize it's just a lot of hogwash. The more I listen and the more I pay attention to what the government is doing.
Yeah, and like we're trying to express here, it's actually a lot simpler than what people have been led to believe. And of course, once we find that out, we also realize that they should be teaching this to us younger. And it's simply clarified by the mere fact that we go out of high school thinking that we know what we're doing in life to manage the rest of our lives, and nobody's ever really taught us how to manage that life according to the trust and the estate, which are the imperative things that we need to pay attention to. So it's abysmal public education system at best. It says the secured debt obligations represent a creditor relationship that the company has with each of the four lien debtors. And that's why I say I think it's the municipality, the county, the state, and the United States. Not sure yet, but that's who I'm planning on. I'm going to give them all notice and give each one of them a private placement of this particular notice for the bond.
Well, that's the only thing I'm saying is that you have to record that lien somewhere. So where was those each of those liens, if it's against the state, the federal, and the municipality, they got to have it recorded somewhere.
Right, but I think that's part of the thing that that's part of the record that they're not privy to.
Well, that's why I'm saying just do a fidelity bond and just put them all into one, right, and record that. You record that fidelity bond. Now,
I see. Yeah.
I don't get y'all figure out who owes what. But
that makes sense because, like I said earlier, it's the Postal Service that has the fidelity bond with the United States, which is acting the same way, but it's covering all of the trickle down from the United States down. So that that actually makes sense there.
And so as a UCC1, that's federal, and it's going to hit the United States, and then the United States has got to figure out Minnesota owes this, Missouri owes that, Indiana owes. They got to figure that out. I'm not here to try to figure that out. So I did the same thing. I just did it on the UCC1 as a fidelity.
Yep. And so continuing on, and I got something else I'll pull up to expand on that. The marketable securities are available for sale and are shown on the company's balance sheet at fair value. But that's that thing about they put $73 million on the table. I call you, you're $73 million, and I'm going to raise you $73 million. So now mine are offered for $146 million. You want to buy one of mine?
Gotcha.
See, it's not dollar for dollar. That's the problem with demanding a certain species in those courts. They can't do it, HGR 192. So you have to create something that's going to allow them to understand your equal station in life at the poker table. The four securities have not been registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission under the Securities Act, as amended, in reliance upon the exemption from registration provided by Section 4.2 of the Act, Rule 506 of Regulation D of the General Rules, and regulations promulgated thereunder by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Accordingly, distribution of the four securities shall be by private placement memorandum, which will be limited to persons who meet certain minimum financial qualifications, and each private placement memorandum will not constitute an offer to sell or solicitation of an offer to buy with respect to any person who does not meet such financial qualifications. So it's only offered for those that are actually qualified. And that has to be a large buyer. The four securities have not been approved or disapproved. by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Any representation to the contrary is criminal offense. The beneficiary, this is the trust law, trust words. The beneficiary for the company had made a valid claim of debt by an affidavit in the form of a commercial lien, and by allowing the lien to mature in 3 months, 90 days, into a secured debt obligation, by the failure of the lien debtors to contest the lien and its affidavit by a counter affidavit. So what we're doing is putting forth a statement of intent, which is an affidavit, and they have to contest it that you're not the first lien holder. Sorry, I'm the boss. I'm in control now. The beneficiary comes in control for settlement. It comes to me for settlement. Go ahead.
So basically, Keith, when they try to make the credit man, which is considered the defendant, to be defending, they really need to be contesting instead of defending anything, because they can't defend anything. And if you're if you're the man of the land, wouldn't they have to condemn the land in order for you to take control over you, and then you would be able to redeem yourself as man on the land? Am I correct?
Correct. And that's what Pastor was talking about earlier with that test. You know, the what was it? The highly sensitive securities test, or highly sensitive information test. You know, there's 3 elements in that test. That's a contest.
No, you're talking about the born. You're talking about the born alive test, or the 3 products of conception, or you're talking about the highly sensitive documents respecting their privacy.
Highly sensitive documents, right?
Right. Yeah, and those 3 elements are the test for that highly sensitive document. It's a highly sensitive document if it's this, or if it's this, or if it's this. So that's the contest. You have to contest that, because that's the test.
Well, isn't the test? Oh, excuse me, brother. I apologize. Well, isn't the test going to be like the testimony, in the sense when you're talking about testicles with a man? It would be the testimony, and the testimony can only be done by the man because only he would be knowing of himself. Am I correct?
Correct. And that's why we beat those presumptions and assumptions with the greater truth, by bringing the facts of the trust forward. So it goes on, it says, the primary method of establishing commercial lien, currency, paper money, is to combine. That's a merger. We talked about the merger, doctrine of merger earlier, and it's telling us here, lien currency is the paper money. It's the contracts. It's the ones with all those negotiable terms for arbitration. That's commercial paper. Go ahead. Oh, I thought someone had something to say. So before we go any further, I think that's the last. Like I said, yeah, the rest of it, the link is down there so you guys can look at it. And I'm always willing to bring it back up. I want to do some more review on this with other people as well. And then one thing before we leave, in relations to Steve Martin talking about fidelity bonds. So we have here bonds, insurance, and taxes. This is the United States Postal Service. They deal with bonds. They deal with annual bonds, patent infringement bonds, fidelity bonds. The definition of a fidelity bond is a fidelity bond is used to assure the faithful performance of an employee's duties to his or her employer and the employer's clients. The bond is used to cover losses such as employee thefts or embezzlement. A fidelity bond in the amount sufficient to protect the interests of the Postal Service may be required for any contract that requires supplier employees to handle Postal Service funds. All that funding is from the Postal Realty Trust, Inc. on the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's the fidelity bond, to make sure that there's no criminal activity in connection with that proprietary information known as an address. Any place where the postal road extends, they have exclusive jurisdiction because of that easement. Under common ownership of common law, we can disperse that easement, and they no longer have any authority. That's what we're talking about.
So where I came from with it was the embezzlement part, because the people that do use your name and address and number, they're accessing your account to do the business you're asking them to do, but then they go and do other business. And that's
I'm of the opinion it's not your account.
It's yours.
No, it's not.
It
wasn't here when I went over the evidence.
Oh, I heard you.
Yeah.
I heard you. And
Okay.
I got a conflating one against that, because the estate doesn't exist until you exist. And
Well, I get that. I understand that. But
they did it in your name, image, and likeness. Because
who created the Social Security account? Congress. They created the trust long before you were born.
True.
Right, and that's why we talk about the merger, because it's their trust that they created, but they did so in your name, and that's the property. That's the main property, the intellectual property of the name, which is in error, and it's defaming your character.
Correct.
And so now you have the right to salvage that character through a salvation and resurrection through a merger into a new name, a good name. And that's all we're talking about, bankruptcy.
The name of that trust that they created, because I spoke with the IRS on that, and they have a trust. It's called a beneficial owner with material interest, and they don't list that one on their website. But when you say that the state created that trust, that's what kind of trust it is. It's a beneficial owner.
It's also assessed to KV trust.
Assessed to KV, yeah.
And it says it's assessed to KV trust. It is for the benefactor, i.e., there is no more grantor once it's created.
Right, there is no grantor of that trust.
People cannot rescind it. No one can dissolve it. The trust exists in perpetuity until the benefactor comes forward to make the claim.
Correct.
Therefore, it's your trust. So no, you didn't create it, because you couldn't create a trust when you were born. There's no way you could have signed with your pinky toe. I'm gonna sign as this. You ain't even got your name yet. Sometimes people don't have their name till 7-10 days after they're born. So there's no way you could have created, which makes you non-settler, non-grantor. But you can.
There is no grantor for that trust, correct?
And what I've done is I've came in and taken over the administrator role, as opposed to being the trustee or just the benefactor, because I stepped in and said, I'm going to manage it. And I said, the only people that could have been creators of that trust are my mom and dad. The rest of y'all, nobody else. Yes, you created it in my likeness, my name, image, and likeness, but that's why they lost the case in 2020 over name, image, and likeness, because you can't create something in someone else's name and then not allow them to control it. So that's the whole disassembly of the government mechanism that prevents us from going to get control of our estate. But through probate, you can do it. I'm proving it. I'm not just, this ain't shit I'm just researching. I'm putting my ass in the fire and I'm getting burned. So I can tell you for 100% fact, I done knocked out most of this shit. But they don't take lightly to it, and it ain't for the meek. You can't just jump in this shit and just try to do it and not be ready for some repercussions, because they're gonna come. But the fidelity bond, I did that just because with the fidelity bond, I can hold any of these people that have been, because what they're doing is standing in as my administrator until my administrator comes forward. So the state and local government has no problem jumping in on any of my court cases or anything that somebody's got claimed against me. They'll jump right in and take that position and administer the estate until I'm capable and ready. That's why I went through probate. I shut the judge down in probate. I'm controlling the probate case. The judge says nothing anymore in my probate case because I've taken it over. So these I can prove what I've done with what I've done, and that you do own it. It is yours. Nobody else owns it. If they don't control it,
it's yours.
But it's yours.
The beneficiary is the true owner.
And that's what they want us to believe, in my opinion. They want us
Yeah,
to
and
say,
that's-
oh, go off and start your own community, go build your own new society, go build everything else while we keep all this money and all these assets and resources. You go on, go ahead and start
that-
your commune and whatnot.
And that's why it's important to express the trust. And again, that trust isn't really created until the beneficiary steps up as trustor and creates it, so that then he can settle it for what it is. It's
Right.
never really been realized until just now. In that, we have to correct the records to make sure that I am, in fact, the true owner.
Correct. And you do that through, they got a process. Like I said, it ain't easy. And there's other ways. I'm not saying my way is the only way. But there's no question, even with my way and other ways, at some point you have to create that private trust. And when you create that private trust, you can only move credits in and out of that trust. Do not try to move money or securities. You can create securities from it, but you can't move them through it. When the security comes to the trust, it's got to turn into credits.
Yep.
When the money leaves, the credits leave the trust, it has to turn into money or into securities.
Into securities.
And real quick here, I wanted to go back over that document again real quick, because we find equity and related stockholder matters raised through its private exchanges, quid pro quo. Hold on. Quid pro quo would have to be raised through private equity or debt financing. The company has no commitments for any private debt or equity financing, and there can be no assurance that any such commitments will be obtained on favorable terms, if at all. See, it's will be, and it's not happened yet. It's not expected to. There can be no assurance that we will be successful in obtaining more debt and or equity financing in the future, or that our results of operations will materially improve in either the short term or long term. No assurance that we will be successful in obtaining more debt or equity. So we have equity. Read between the lines. It is about equity and trust. And like you saw earlier, it was naming the beneficiary and expressing the company had made a valid claim of debt by an affidavit in the form of commercial lien, stating that they're the first party of lien. Buy me out. Oh, I'm sorry. You're subservient. You're the lesser estate. In fact, you're the fictional estate. That's what we have to salvage and make it realized. So we have to create the trust in reality. That's all we're doing. Any other questions or comments or anything? Anybody?
Appreciate this discussion. As always.
Well, brother, as I see it, and I don't know, I made a comment in there that I said this is why a woman cannot testify, because she is without testicles. And so as to a man's easement to ease or mend her heart and her mind, this would be
Yeah.
for me in a fixing of the truth, the faith, and the trust by expressing the trust. That would be the only way to do it.
Right, and that easement is for protection purposes. So that's the mentality of putting one at ease by being a protector. That's truly what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to protect the estate.
Exactly, and that's why the man is in the protective order of hierarchy.
Yep.
I think in the woman's case, you either, I think you lean on your father, whether he's here.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think that's how you do it. I haven't done it, so I can't. And I've only met a few women that have tried to do it the way I'm doing it. But I know in probate's probate. And you just go off of, because I had to put my dad's death certificate into probate too, birth and death certificate. So, because that's the parent trust that I'm coming from. and I had to show all that as evidence. But
Right, 'cause
I
remember-
don't necessarily 100% agree with you, young lady, on that. Go back to the Old Testament. Remember
Well,
when
the reason I say that, beloved, is because when a woman marries, the father have to give the woman away to the new man, and that new man takes the place of the father.
well, yes, I agree
So-
with all of that. I absolutely agree with all that. But do you remember in the Old Testament, and I'm backing up my truck, so don't ask me to be exact here, but didn't they leave a rule for a woman to become an heir?
well,
They did,
the
because
woman's an heir to whatever man's name she took. She's
well, I
the-
know that under marriage. I'm talking about in the Old Testament, there was an example where there was a woman where the man had no sons and everything, and they went to Moses and said, "What are we going to do about this?" And Moses went to God and prayed, and God said, "Well, if the woman does blah blah blah, she can be the heir." And then what happened? We see the result of that in the lineage of Christ.
Right. It says 1 Peter 3:7. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife, as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. So both man and women are heirs to life.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
And to
agree.
my understanding, in probate, you just have to bring in your dad's death certificate, and I think you can have a partial claim on any man you married. So if you married 4 or 5 times, if he hasn't made a claim on that estate and you do, and he's not dead, then you get your heirs right to that estate.
Yep.
To my understanding, the only knew one lady that was doing it at the same time I was doing it, and that's what she was doing. She was putting a claim in on all her. She'd been married 3 times, and she put a name in on each one of those. She put a claim in on each one of those names. I lost touch with her, so I'll try to reach back out to her and see if I can find out everything.
So
Right,
one
and
of the
even-
questions that I have, brother, is that when a woman marries and she is already endowed, and she is the one that has the inheritance to bring forth, when a man gives her to another man, isn't she giving away her inheritance to a
No.
new?
No, it's
Okay.
held in trust. It's
It's
held
held in
it's
trust. Okay.
held in trust.
So you have your right to your family name, that i.e. your father, and the right to your husband's name in commerce, especially if you're still married through the state. Now, if you go and dissolve the state contract, because that's all it is the state just agrees to jump in the middle of your relationship and cause mess. If you dissolve that, that's another story. But if you don't dissolve it, then the state can go into that trust as your administrator and pull that resources from that trust.
Well,
And
when I-
understand you have an inherent right, as well as in the Christian scriptures, an instruction to change that last name, that surname. Isaiah 44:5. One shall say, I am the Lord's. Another shall call himself by the name Jacob, and another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name Israel. So you can literally, like I've done, I've created multiple channels here on YouTube and Facebook and other profiles, and that's what it's about. What Pastor spoke of earlier in contracts, you create different persons. Every time you signed a document, that's a different person because it had a different number.
Well, your social security number stays the same, but
Right.
if it has different names to it, those are different accounts inside of your social security number. But you can pull, and keep in mind, nobody's touching these accounts. So
Right.
they got value in it. So if you just pulled your name.
Yeah, they're all abandoned funds that the state can't touch.
Yeah, but they leveraged.
Right.
And as long as they leverage it, then it's value to the state. But you start pulling that stuff. The first folks that start pulling on these accounts, you don't have to worry about money because money will no longer be an issue to you.
Right. That's what I was saying earlier. When if you understand the credit union thing, it's a union of two people that are agreeing not to act as a standalone bank. That's it. They each get to issue their promissory notes, international bills of exchange, surety bonds, and all that. One's a private issue, one's a public issue. You get to discern which it is, and you get to place it in private with the SEC to let them know, hey, if you do, it's here, it's for sale. It's twice as much as yours is.
All right, you get to decide if it's going to be a security or an asset.
How many people want to go up against Goliath, somebody twice their size? Not many.
I do.
I think we're doing it now.
I've been taking his ass on for 17 years.
So, absolutely. What do you think? What do you think, Floyd? You've been sitting back there awful quiet for a long time.
I like all of it. I like what I've heard. I think this has been an excellent video. Thank you for everybody participating and putting your input in. Keith's main goal in doing this video was to vet this document, to improve it, to see what we could add with 14 years more of additional knowledge and research and ability to look at some of these different articles and archives that Keith's found and apply them as well with scripture as Keith has so eloquently done. So I want to thank everybody for their input and everybody who's going to watch this video in the future. I think we should do more on this particular document and how.
Yeah, that's why I shared the link. I want everybody to go over this in detail and just slowly read it. Print it off and make your notes, just like a teacher would correct a document. Make your notes, line item veto and overriding, and let's come back and go over this again. And that way, in our research, maybe we'll come over some other information that helps us proceed even further.
Okay, what date do you want to make that a static date?
Let's give it. What do you guys feel comfortable with? Because I'd like you all to do your research on it and come back in a week, 2 weeks. Let me know.
Yeah, a week from now is fine for me.
Let's just do a week. Let's do every Sunday at what time do we come on? 9 o'clock Central?
Yep, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's fine because A6 comes on about 6 or 7, depending on the East Coast. Okay. He's every Sunday night he does his show.
Yep, that's 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that's been the regular starting time on Sunday night for me for quite a while. So hopefully we should have a good appearance there too.
And if anybody wants to link to join in the video, y'all can hit Keith up. You can hit me up, the Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com. Keith,
yeah, and if everybody would do me a favor and drop your emails in the back chat, those that are willing, because it is a matter of networking and connecting with people, both here and in private. And of course, I know you guys all have good discernment to know who the cupcakes and fruitcakes are. So, and you're much like me. I'm willing and give out my email openly. So I'm going to drop mine in the back chat for everybody. And down below, you guys feel free to do the same.
Right. Let's just try to find a core group of people that can get through it. And that way, that core can break apart and start other little hubs to educate other people. Because there's, we're not going to be able to educate everybody just with our videos that we're doing now. We need to get through it first, and then we can excel. And,
Let me be clear. This Williams guy, he's able to issue instruments through his name. Is that what he's successfully achieved by doing this?
Well, I imagine so. It's recorded with the SEC, and you see the numbers on it. And like I said, it was 2010. I'm trying to find out how to contact him so I can talk to him about those amounts and find out what they are and how he derived them, so we have a better concept ourselves.
No, because I filed stuff in a lot of places, but I got no smoke off of it. So
Yeah, and that's why I say SEC seems to be the one to do it because again, you're basically putting up an indemnification bond.
I mean, I'll write securities all day if I can do
Yep.
it. I'm telling you, I will. I joke with Keith all the time about getting me an SUV with chinchilla fur and a firework in the back.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, just I will write till my hand gets cramped, and then I'll drink some water and write some more because I won't have any problem. Because the path I'm on, I don't know. I'm close, but I'm fighting local. And
go ahead.
Now that's where what I figured is all politics is local, and truly, when you really get into governance, that's really what it is. It's what your county and your sheriff are doing that is more powerful against you than anything else. So
I dropped my link in the group to my platforms. I do lives on my Telegram group right regular.
Well, now I kind of recognize you better. Now I kind of recognize you better, brother, because I watched your videos. I think I'm subscribed.
Yeah, I actually put out quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
All right.
Also, guys, if y'all know anybody else that's educated in this, because I did invite some other people, and it was such short notice on a nice Sunday, so I really didn't expect too many people to join. So there are some other people. Pardon?
Yeah. Floyd, get my number over to Keith. Have him give me a call.
Okay, I'll do that. I got you, Keith.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, but like I said, if you have anybody that's knowledgeable, anywhere around this, maybe having done some SEC filings, anything that addresses this, of course, I've got trust classes and trust book, but I'm not pitching that. But I want to bring some other educated people on here, like Kevin Westering. Y'all familiar with Kevin, right? I know Pastor is. Keith, you are too, right?
I don't know.
You'll know him when you hear him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's used. I think it was a Series 7 broker.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was trying to get him on here, like I said, last minute, and then I wanted Jesse on here as well because he's always knowledgeable about this, especially when you start talking about the birth stuff.
Yeah,
so that's all I have to add. Closing out.
Well, Wesley Keith Mullins done something similar on the SEC.
Yep. I'm familiar with Wesley too.
Yeah, Wesley can come on here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What we got here is 18 U.S.C. 8, and I just pulled this up. Obligation or other security of the United States defined. And I wanted to point out, despite all this other garbage here, we have one simple statement. One simple statement between this comma and this comma. And it's all lowercase. And it says stamps and other representatives of value. Now, what I'm pushing for is to help people understand you make your own money, period. And that's a representative of value. Therefore, you can make your own stamps. You can make your own surety bonds. You can make your own bonds, period. A man is bonded by his word. Learn how to coin them, folks. And with that, we come to the end of the stream for tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I will leave the panel open after we shut down if for anybody who wants to stand back and maybe go over things a little bit more or whatever. That would be greatly appreciated. So in the meantime, I'm going to hand it over to everybody else to give everybody your last word on the way out. And then I'll say my byes and we'll open up after the show.
I just want to say thank you again, man, for hosting this.
Absolutely. It's that feed a man for a day if you give him a fish. You teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But the main principle is that we have to keep that knowledge going. Teach one.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I don't don't really have much to say, Keith, but the Most High or the Spirit had put that scripture for Jeremiah 51 verses 17 and 18, and that would be the only thing if you want to look it over. I think that was the message that was being given to me today through the universe. So other than that, I got to give all praises to the Most High for everybody that's been here today. It was divinely ordered.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll read that real quick here for you. It says, every man is brutish by his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image. For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are vanity, the work of errors. In the time of their visitation they shall perish. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. Absolute. All glory goes to God, folks. That's where the true credit comes from. It's called merits, spiritual credit. Look it up. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd say thank you for bringing me on. Sorry I got here late. I'm a firm believer in bring what you got. Don't. Everybody ain't going to be everything to everyone. But the one thing I found in Keith is absolute research. Like I ain't got to look it up when Keith looks it up. So
Yeah, I show you all my sources.
Yeah,
every time.
I'm a bull in the china shop. I'll get on the ground and I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna talk about it too long. I just need a couple good instructions and I'm on the road. So
absolutely, I got my birth certificate bonds here. I've only got 3 of them. I got them before.
Well, I've learned how to operate with no fear and let go of any and all inhibitions, and I stopped being afraid of the system. Don't get me wrong, I get bit, but they can't keep their teeth in me anymore. So my skin done got too tough. So,
absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Anytime.
The Bible says numerous times, do not fear. And since fear is a sin, the government's job is to regulate sin.
Yep. That's why they give you a SIN number, social insurance number.
And that's why they say perfect love casts out all fear.
Yep. Absolutely. And with that, folks, we are done with the stream. And you know me, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So may God bless you. And we'll see you guys next time. You guys in the back, hang out if you want to talk some more. And I'll be right back after the outro. Thanks again, guys.